Hola and welcome to Rauta Spanish Black Metal Review. This time we have a band originally from the 90s, but once upon a time also decided it quits, only to come back a little bit later, and now with the ninth album of Cryfemal, Cryfemal. Well, I kind of wanted to make the joke. He's back. And now it's not a solo project as such, even though the main man is pretty much taking care of everything else except drums. And since the previous albums, it seems the drummer have changed. That is not to say the drumming isn't good and all that stuff. It's just different thing. Mainly it's still one man using the moniker Ebola. That's kind of edgy, but I guess fits the music very well. Originally, this was from the continental side of Spain, later on relocated in different part of Spain. Here it says Canary Islands, and that's pretty much the story, basically what you need to know about Cryfemal with its vast discography. That is, there's plenty of EPs, also splits and whatnot, in addition to these 9 full albums out there. Now, my first time I got to hear this Spanish band was with the help of the Devil in 2004, and that was a horrible one. I actually wrote in the magazine I wrote for that it was one of the most horrible album of the year. Haven't since touched it, so take it as you will. Now, later on I got to review some of the later stuff, including Eterna Obscuridad from 2020, which was quite of a decent black metal one. Now, why I mentioned these is that this latest album, La Gran Victoria del Mal, roughly the Great Victory of Evil, is between those extremities. That is pretty decent of black metal to quite horrible in black metal, because La Gran Victoria is actually only an okay album. The good things include 30 minutes of length, which means it doesn't bore you down that much anyway, because it's nicely done. It's like Cryfemal's way to do Raining Blood or Panzer Division Marduk. 30 minutes in and out, boom, you're done. Now, the other good side is the production is pretty solid, especially the audible, loud bass guitar is bringing quite a punch with the music, and it could really be very, very beneficial for the album, unless there are lots of buts. Let's start with the most obvious butt in the game here. That is not the rather ugly cover image, by the way. I mean, it's not the most horrible out there, but hardly beating those AI manufactured graphical creations of these days. The downside is this album lacks the kind of a contrast which would be very, very beneficial, the overall listenability for this album. It's all the way down, with some exceptions, fast blasting black metal with too much stuff on the front. It's almost like after a couple of songs you're like, okay, let my ears rest a bit, because it's just fast blast beats with lots of guitars going very fast and lots of screaming all the way down, which means that you barely get to rest and take it easy every now and then in order to create the contrast between the faster parts, which are very intense, very extreme, and then having the kind of a breakdowns. And for people who are like, hey, but there are albums like Panzer Division Marduk, exactly. There are albums which are like exceptions in this rule. When you are done with beautiful songs, intense, violent, aggression and all that stuff, and you're done doing it with great riffs, great songs and all that stuff, you can just pretty much skip the, slower parts and all that stuff and just go punching all the way down, make it very intense and all that stuff. Now, unfortunately for Cryfemal, none of these riffs are even close to that quality. It's not like they're bad, but very, very often they're very lukewarm, very basic kind of a forgettable filler parts. Yes, there are better parts, better riffs and all that stuff, but they are often buried because of these faster parts, which are just overwhelming. They're too much, and also, even though the guitar sound is thick and strong and all that stuff, when you have too much on the front, it's like this very audible snare drum, which is like da 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 da. And it's almost like the screamy vocals are competing for attention with that. And then the bass comes into play like, okay, we gotta do it as well. Which means the guitars are more in the background. And if you know what I mean, it means that the guitars are not audible enough. Whatever good riffs you have going on, it's like, overshadowed by the bass, the snare drum, the screaminess. And it becomes kind of a chaotic mess eventually. And by the time you're done with 30 minutes of this one, you're like, man, I need a break. Not so much only because of the intensity, but also because it's just repeating basically one pattern. Surely there are breaks where you just like sit down and like, now this is some proper riff, only to get beaten again with so fast, so much, too much. And especially when you're listening to this multiple times, which I always do for reviews. Some people might say, yeah, it's not doing the favor for the albums. If you only listen to it once a day, maybe for 2 weeks, maybe it would be different. I don't have the luxury more and more review albums coming all the time. Also, this really separates the rubies from the pearls from the chaff. The thing here is, when an album is really, really good, the more intensely, the more back-to-back you listen to it, the more you start to like it. Like, this is real catchy stuff. Whereas the weak ones just get more annoying. Now, for this one, my scoring really didn't change that much. From the beginning, I was pretty much like, this is quite okay. Much like an Iron Maiden album, except that this is not so goddamn long like those late Iron Maiden albums. But at least they had some catchier parts, which puts them roughly, in my opinion, equal to those. Yes, they bore me the shit out of because of their 70 minutes of music and whatnot, with not that great songwriting. Cryfemal is at least able to, stop it by 30 minutes. But the thing is, this is kind of lacking that kind of a memorability and killer riffs as opposed to Iron Maiden. But at least these songs are not overly lengthy. I mean, at worst, it's more like 5 minutes, 21 seconds or so, where the rest of the songs are roughly 3 minutes, give or take. Some 4-minute ones, whatever. So it's not like at least boring to the, with the length and all that stuff. But still, take my word for it. 30 minutes of this one, especially a couple of times in a row. I did more than that, obviously. And you're pretty much done for the rest of the day. Maybe all you need is to play this album once in 6 months and you're like, okay, I got my dose of Cryfemal and the next time it will be another 6 months away. Now, I'm not going to call this a horrible album because it is obviously better than that. But calling this good one, I would be lying. I would be motherfucking liar, a son of a bitch. Maybe I'm just a son of a bitch, but at least I want to be an honest one. So probably the band, probably the label, probably people liking the band are going to hate me for this, but I'm going to give it 6 out of 10. Give it a chance if you like fast-paced, intense, aggressive black metal and you don't like too much variety. But don't expect too much still, nonetheless. It's worth a shot anyway, so links provided in the description box. Decide for yourself. That's what matters more than any of us review guys saying your opinions. Now off you go, get some cup of coffee and put this album on a spin, and if it's right up your alley, go and buy it. Thanks for your time. Bye bye.